A lot of misleading things have been said about retirement, and perhaps they contribute to the fear that many people or some people have about retirement. Welcome to a word from the coach. In our previous word from the coach, we opened the conversation of retirement and we began by looking at what I called the job cycle to give us the reality of the life of an employed person. Someone who is employed has to go through the stages that we mentioned last time. And the last stage of that cycle was the stage that I call the job exit stage. And I was reminding us that for as long as you ever got a job somewhere, it pays for you to always remember that a day will come when you will exit. And one of the ways through which we exit is exiting naturally, and that is where retirement is found. But today, I want us to look at misconceptions of retirement, some of the things that the world has sold to us that are not entirely true. Some of the statements, some of the positions that people have given us regarding retirement that may not entirely be true. But before we get into it, if this is your first time here, please subscribe to this channel. If you love what we're doing here, please like this video, get to share it with someone else, drop us a comment, drop us a question, let me know which other areas you would want me to address, and I'll be glad to make another word from the coach video to address the same. Right, so welcome, and let us look at 5 misconceptions of retirement. Number 1, that retirement is a time of not working. That once you have retired, you are not supposed to do any work, any type of work. There are very many people who go into retirement having bought this position that once they retire, they will not do any type of work. After all, they have retired. They are retirees. Okay? I must begin by reminding us that retirement does not mark stoppage of work. As long as you are alive as a human being, the element of work continues. Retirement is simply transition from the employer's work to your own work, but work continues. I've met scenarios where people have retired and where they have gone as their retirement place, they decide that they will not touch anything that looks like work. They just want to wake up, sit down, idle the entire day. That is not even physically healthy. Misconception number 2 is that retirement is a time of resting. Retirement is a time of resting. There are people who go into retirement only believing that they are going to rest and do nothing else. That the only thing retirement means to them is that they will wake up in the morning, sit down, put their feet on top of some stool and rest. And they've taken this position so literally that resting means not doing anything, not even moving. Probably they only move when they want to attend to the calls of nature, but they will be waking up in the morning and resting in its literal form. I don't know whether in life we get to a point where we absolutely rest unless we have died. But you will agree with me, even those of you that are still employed, that you rarely have a time you can say you have absolutely rested. Of course, we have the bouts of rests that we have in between engagements where we are physically tired. You get home in the evening, you want to sit down and have some rest. That is fine. But we rarely will have moments where we experience absolute rest. Like when you take your annual leave, for example, your colleagues will say you're going home to rest. And you might as well even be thinking or saying that you're going to rest. But when you come back, you will agree that you rarely will have sat down and absolutely rested, done nothing. What resting in this case simply means is change of chapters in your life. When you take your leave, you switch, you mute your active work, the employment that you are engaged in, and you open the chapter of the other side of your life. That is why when you go wherever you're going, you will be engaged in, working in your compound. You will be engaged in just making sure that your compound looks nice, your animals are good. If you have animals, you go into the farm. You are working in terms of, work continuing. You're working. So you rarely will absolutely rest, just sit down and do nothing. So retirement does not mean that you're going home to sit down and do nothing at all because you are resting. You will rest from having worked for all the years, but you will be resting as you do other things, not waking up and doing nothing and just waiting for hours to pass. That, as earlier mentioned, is not even healthy. Misconception number 3 is that retirement is a time of reading newspapers. Now, retirees and newspapers. I don't know where you come from, whether you have observed retirees and newspapers. There is a very strikingly interesting relationship between retirees and their newspapers. Ni time ya kusoma magazeti. Now, there are people who actually look forward to retirement, and they will tell you that now they have chance to read newspapers. And I have met cases. These things I'm sharing here are things I have met on the ground. I've met cases where, someone says that all they thought they were going to do in retirement was to read newspapers. After all, they've not been having time for reading newspapers while they were working. And therefore, retirement has accorded them time to be able to read newspapers. And so what do? Every single day, they'll be buying newspapers, sometimes 2 of them, 3 of them, depending, with what is available in your country. Trouble comes when the money they had gets finished, or when they begin to experience financial constraints, yet they still need to read newspapers. Remember, they wake up in the morning and go to buy newspapers or send someone to buy newspapers. But now when their money gets depleted, some of them get so confused, they start going to hire newspapers. Especially in the rural settings, the people who sell newspapers, more often than not, they will always have a bench where they're selling the papers for them to hire newspapers. Locally here, they'll be hiring newspapers at 10 shillings, per copy, or 20 per copy. So you'll find retirees in the morning in the local centers, having to sit down and hire newspapers. So they'll hire one newspaper, they read cover to cover, they hire second newspaper, depending on the amount of money that they have. And then now they can go home and participate in, discussions and discourses of what is going on in the world. But according to them, retirement meant an opportunity or a time to read newspapers. While you will have the time to read newspapers, please remember that retirement is not all about newspapers. Perhaps newspapers only form a tiny portion of what you will be doing in retirement, okay? But retirement is not equal to a time of reading newspapers entirely. Misconception number 4 is that retirement is a time of marrying again. This one is so big on the African continent. There are very many people who have tuned their mind to believe that the time they retire will be a time for them to acquire what they call, in quotes, a retirement project. In other words, a new wife for them to, pick the life of retirement together with. This might sound hilarious in some places. When I'm doing my retirement trainings, which I do quite a lot, I share this statement and people burst out laughing. But I tell them, on the ground, I have met realities that have really, been disturbing as far as this matter is concerned. So we have got retirees who will be going into retirement, and when they receive their final dues or their golden handshake, whatever you call them, their pension kitty, they will be wanting to be given, their lump sum at once. And many of them want to use this lump sum as a bait for them to get, some new girl that they will call their retirement wife or retirement project. But I keep telling many of them that if that then is the approach, then you are getting into marriage not because you love someone, not because of any other thing. It's because that person is attracted first to the money that you are dangling in their face. And then even you yourself, you do not have any focus. You don't have any proper long-term plan. I remember in a session where I had to take participants through the financial implication of choosing to marry again upon retirement. And I will never forget um, a person who was going who was facing retirement when we went for lunch, and he came back and told me, Coach, if there is one person you came for today, is me. The truth is, I had decided that when this money comes tomorrow, they were to be given their final dues the next day. When this money comes tomorrow, I had planned that I was going to marry again. In my head, I've even pictured where I will build a house for the new wife. But now the calculations you have given us have shown me that the money I thought was a lot of money is actually not a lot of money. And so I am confirming to you that I'm going to change my view, because I think we can do a lot if I work together with my wife. Because what most of those people who think that retirement is a time of marrying again will do is that they will neglect their original family. Then they will marry someone who is attracted to them because of the money. After a while, the money gets depleted. Whatever they were calling retirement project disappears from their lives. Okay? And therefore, they don't have money, they don't have the project. Some of them might even get, children as products of the relationship that they get themselves into. So you can imagine beginning to think about the expenditures of schooling after retirement. And that complicates a lot of things. Some of them have had to go back home to the villages where they deserted their families. And this time around, they're going home with nothing. I have handled cases where family members are reporting that their father got, retired, got married, has depleted the money, has even sold properties. A particular case was where the father was trying to sell their matrimonial property so that he can finance the relationship in town with the with the new wife. Therefore, it's important that I remind you that retirement does not have to be a time for you to marry again. If anything, the choice of marrying again complicates your life after retirement. Misconception number 5 is that retirement is a time to die. Yes, there are many people who have sold fears out here that people in this profession do not live 1 year after retirement, 5 years after retirement, and some people have bought it, and they actually believe that when they retire, they will not live past a certain number of years. I remember when I was joining banking, and it used to be said that bankers don't live more than 5 years after retirement. And there were statistics. Whoever would tell you that, they will tell you there is so and so who was working in that particular branch, retired this particular year, died this other year. So and so who was working in this other place, retired this year, died this other year. If you're not careful, you can buy that propaganda. You will actually die, not because death has come, but because you expected to die. Because you bought the fear. You bought the lie, you bought the misconception that when you retire, then the next thing that is going to happen is death. Many times I tell my students, my retirement students, that age 60, locally here we retire at 60. 60 is a very young age for you to condemn yourself, to even speak death sentence upon yourself. 60, the things a 60-year-old can do are very many. There are very many people who are energetic, who have a lot of strength in their 70s, in their 80s. Why are you condemning yourself at a paltry 60 years? 60, you're still a toddler. You're still a toddler. So please do not condemn yourself. Don't pronounce death upon yourself. Don't believe that because they have told you that people in this particular space do not live, beyond a certain period after retirement, please do not pronounce that upon yourself. Otherwise, you might die, not because you were ripe for death, but because you expected to die. Good people, we will continue with this series. I promise that I will be breaking down this retirement conversation in bits for you to be able to get it, even much better. We're just starting. This is the second episode. If you missed the previous episode where I was sharing about the job cycle, follow up that conversation so that you can be able to see where this conversation is speaking from. Next week, God willing, then we progress and look at realities of retirement. We can have both positive and negative realities. So I hope to see you next time as I bring to you another word from the coach. Do not forget to subscribe. Please like this video, share it with other people, drop a comment, drop a question, and I'll be glad to look at it. I'll be glad to make another video to respond to the same and give you another word from the coach. You can do better. See you next time.